Hey, Guru Nation, welcome to another episode. Look, I've got Brandon Lee from Power. He's the co-founder of Power. He's Forbes 30 under 30. Um, he is running the clinicaltrials.gov. I guess the way to describe Power is it's withpower.com. The link is underneath. The way I understand it, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
It's a user-friendly clinicaltrials.gov that's meant to connect patients with research sites.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for having me here. I think you hit the nail on the head. The way that we like to think about it is that Power is a modern clinical trial marketplace. So what does that mean? It means that we make it easy for patients to find and discover exciting medical research and connect with the researchers directly. We make it easy for those research sites to find and connect with interested patients that are nearby. And then we make it easy
Oh,
for and then we make it easy for sponsors to talk about their research and share more about the research in a way that patients can understand and find and get interested in participating in. And then finally, we close the loop between sponsors and sites to help them collaborate more closely, transparently, and in real time on what is happening on the ground for their recruitment activities.
okay. Before we get into the why and all that, I just wanted to kind of kind of double click on the sites finding patients part just for a
Sure.
second. And while you talk, I just want to share the screen really
Yeah.
quick. So this is the homepage, withpower.com. I used it for my site, Yuma, Arizona. I did find the studies I was doing. So you can just kind of play around with it. Most of you guys are researchers or who's gonna be using this, Brandon, is research sites trying to find studies that they can apply for. I use clinicaltrials.gov exclusively for that. The joke of clinicaltrials.gov is kind of like this is like the industry joke. If you take away oncology, right? Because oncology, you have a very motivated um, patient population. So they're familiar with how to look on clinicaltrials.gov, how to look for past studies with results. If you take oncology out, because oncology is kind of its own thing, just regular, let's say diabetes, internal medicine type of studies, patients are not using it. It's research sites using it to see what studies they can apply for, and then indirectly figuring out how to contact the study leads or study director to get that study. Um, I guess is that possible to do on your site too?
For study sites to get in touch with a sponsor, not yet. Not yet.
Ah,
It's certainly a compelling vision, right?
sponsor's gonna love
Um,
you.
I mean, the vision here is I keep going back to this idea of a modern clinical trial marketplace. Like, what does that mean? It means that there are three really core stakeholders or actors, like in running the clinical trial, right? You've got the patients, of course, who I think have been forgotten for too long. You've got the sites who have also been left to the wayside a little bit, but increasing talk now of trying to reduce site burn and improve the site experience. And you've got the sponsors. And in our mind, there's kind of a path between each of these stakeholders. Right? You can imagine a triangle with kind of like edges that connect each of the nodes. Um, uh, in our minds, a modern clinical trial marketplace allows each of those connections to happen on platform seamlessly and in real time. We make it easy to collaborate across the board. Today, our focus really is helping patients find and participate in research. But who's to say where it goes tomorrow, right? Um, and like one of the interesting things you just said was the inside joke is that clinicaltrials.gov is for oncology patients and then for sites to find trials. Um, our platform doesn't necessarily look that way. Our platform, I think about a third of the patients are oncology patients looking for trials, certainly, but then two-thirds are non-oncology patients that are also looking to actively participate in research. About a third of them in CNS, and then a third of them in kind of
But
what
where are these people coming from? Because like the average person doesn't know that clinical trials is even an option. And then they're not going to know about with power. I mean, even us in the industry don't know about with power yet. So, like, where are they coming from? You guys running ads, or how is that? How are they getting to your site?
Yeah, that's the most exciting part. So um, about half of the people coming to our site, and I should start with, we had north of 300,000 people use the site last year to look for trials. So 300,000 people looking for trials. It's not a huge number, right? It's not the entirety of the US, but it's
It's still
actually
significant. It's
it's a
impressive.
significant number when you think about, what do we need to enroll every year to make the system go well, right?
Hmm.
Um, so 300,000 people, how does that break down? About half of them find us on their own when they're looking online. They're like Googling, hey, I'm interested in, I don't know, like multiple sclerosis clinical trials in this geography. And they might find us on whatever search engine they're using. Have you used the new Bing chat, like the new AI stuff that's coming out?
Yes, I got back on to Bing just because of the AI thing.
So
Yep,
Bing's AI loves us.
I see. I see.
So it's stuff like that.
But
That's about half the topic.
that still captures like the intent crowd, right? Like
Mhm.
the ones who understand the concept, hey, there is such a thing as clinical research and I could participate and I'm not a guinea pig. But that's still like a small piece of the pie. Like the majority of the people we're trying to get, they need to be educated on first, like what is research? I didn't know that was a thing. Most of my patients that are research naive at my site, they're like, yeah, I didn't know this was a thing, like how, so it's like, to me, it's if somebody can figure this out online, I think it's game over.
Totally. So it's the way that we think about it is you can't boil the ocean, right? You can't solve for every potential person at once because everybody has a different starting point. Like to your point, the research naive patient has a different set of priors, a different set of assumptions that they come in with. Our viewpoint is, hey, let's start with the patients that are the most engaged, know what they're looking for. Let's help them first. Let's make it easier for them to experience their journey because, frankly, the journey today for them, even them, is way too difficult, right? Then let's go one step further, right? Let's go to the patients who probably should be considering clinical trials, just they just aren't being told about those opportunities at
Mhm.
wherever they're receiving care, right? How do we then get in front of them, and then so on and so forth. But we can't really paint a brush across every patient because everybody's on a different journey, and that's the way we think about it. Anyways, 25, like, so that's about half of our patients. So half of the patients are the ones who are like engaged in looking online. A quarter of our patients actually is starting to fall into this other category. A quarter of them come from word of mouth referral. We're starting to see things like, community physicians learning about our website and then referring their patients to us instead of clinicaltrials.gov because they see the experience and they realize, oh, this is going to be a tool that my patient can actually use to navigate the space as opposed to sending them to ct.gov, which will probably confuse and
Yeah,
scare them a little bit.
ct.gov. I mean, we can maybe get into the origin story now.
Mhm.
Maybe before that, because I might forget to ask this. So
Sure.
for sites that want to find patients,
Yeah.
because that's, I'm a site owner. Like,
Mhm.
sure, I'd love to find patients for some of my trials. Some of them are tough to enroll. How do I do that?
Yeah. So if you go to the website, across the top tab, there is for researchers and for sponsors as well. If you hit for researchers, we've got a little button up top, which is, hey, just try it. You can actually create a login by yourself without talking to anybody on our team and self-serve your way into the product. We think of it as the first true self-serve experience for sites to connect with patients. Go ahead, give it a click. Let me know if it's not working for you, in which case we'll happily take the feedback. And if you want to speak to somebody on our team, we always are open to jumping on the phone and spending some time together if it's helpful for you.
I'm doing it right now live. Can you give me like just in the audience like a brief rundown of what happens when we do
Yeah,
that and how
absolutely.
that works?
Absolutely. So you create a profile, you confirm or you kind of confirm which studies you're participating in, and then we don't just let you claim any study and then start seeing information. We Somebody on our team has to verify your identity and make sure that
Okay.
okay, you're actually like you actually work at this site. This site is actually associated with the study. You can actually see the information here. And then once that happens, then two things start happening. The first one is that if patients are connecting nearby your location for the indications that you're recruiting for, they'll start being referred to you. You can actually take a look and customize a pre-screener for some of your studies if you'd like to start triaging patients into your site in the way that you want. So a lot of sites actually use us as their intake tool because they can triage patients more efficiently.
Mhm.
And then the second thing that happens is you'll get access to our registry. So when patients use our platform, they sign up to participate in our registry. It's kind of like an anonymous LinkedIn, like for patients. So
Mhm.
patients have a profile up there, and you can kind of reach out to them, send them kind of like a connection request, like you would on LinkedIn, and see if they'd be interested in your research.
I see. Yeah, I'm showing it for the people on video on YouTube. If
Mhm.
you're listening, you might want to go to the video for this one, the YouTube channel. So I just did. I'm not gonna actually do it during the interview,
So yeah,
but I'll do it after. But interesting. So I noticed on there 2 free patient leads a month
that's right.
forever, or
For
at least
now,
for the time being.
for now,
I
yeah.
see.
You know, we're we're
So
we're getting a lot of feedback from sites.
how
Uh,
many sites do you have like that actually did this, like claim their profile and like what I'm
more
about to
than
do?
more than 400. Um,
400.
More than 400. That's right.
You guys
And
do some good marketing, Brandon.
it's across the board. It's like we have, like the who's who of like AMCs. Like we've got, labs, individuals at these AMCs that are signing up, and you're never gonna get the whole AMC. It's like a labyrinth over there. And then
Mhm.
we've got like research, like dedicated research practices, as well as community clinics that do research on the side. We have the whole range of sites that are starting to use it.
Wow. I mean, I'm actually excited about this because as somebody doing research since 2005, clinicaltrials.gov, that's been my go-to. Occasionally, patients will ask questions about previous studies, and I go to clinicaltrials.gov, search, give them the link, say here's like the previous trials. We're in a phase 3. Here's the phase 2s. I mean, there's some value there, but I would never send the patients there on their own and say just try to find it on clinicaltrials.gov. It's hard to find. You get lost on there really quickly.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to be so excited about some of the updates that we're starting to build to the website. So,
What are you gonna do,
for
Brandon? Well, tell us.
exactly what you just said, we're actually already pulling information from the phase two and putting it onto the website if it's available. So, if the results are available from phase two, side effects, any like prior readouts, we're starting to put them in there. And we're putting them into nice, neat graphs that patients can look at, as opposed to those really scary kind of like tables that we all like know about on
Yeah,
ct.gov.
yeah.
Um, then I think something that's really interesting is can we can we find the posters that are presented at ASCO or AACR, right? Like this past week. Can we find like the publicly available information that's like being presented, the papers that are being published, whatnot, and can we link to them?
Wow.
Right? Can we link to them so that we know that patients who are engaged are trying to find this stuff.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
our view is we want to make it as easy as possible for those patients to do their research and get engaged.
Wow. Do you think you'll ever have like a publishing space for like if this gets big enough to where uh researchers that want to submit their journals, their papers can publish like Nature or Science?
Oh, that's really interesting. Like could we have like the Elsevier of clinical trial information, like have a
Yeah, just another option, peer reviewed and I just thought of it right
cool
now.
idea.
I mean, what's the difference between like Nature? I mean, okay, Nature and Science, they're the big ones, but there's these obscure ones that no one's ever heard of. They're not household names. And patients don't go there necessarily.
Yeah, what would you call it, Dan?
I don't know. Power
Power,
publishing.
Power Publishing. You heard it here first.
All
We're launching Power Publishing.
right, I want some royalties. Let's talk to the board. Okay,
Yeah,
Brandon,
let's do it.
that is actually really cool. So I'm gonna sign up. I see it as risk-free. Let's say I like it as a site
Mhm.
owner. Do you have like a pricing model or is it per study? How does that work?
Yeah, so right now we're actually the reason I was hesitant to kind of um, confirm the two matches a month is we're still in beta on this.
Mm.
Like we're in beta. We have 400 sites who've already signed up for the beta. The interest has been phenomenal, but we're still trying to figure it out, right?
Okay.
So your feedback's going to be huge in us figuring it out. But yeah, we've got a premium tier that you can sign up for as well. What that premium tier looks like is a little bit of a investigation right now. Um,
Sign up for yourself if you're a site and find out.
and find out. And who knows, maybe we grandfather you into whatever we're
Right.
giving away for free right now. Um,
hmm I
uh,
guess So that bleeds into my next question, because as
Yeah,
cool as this sounds, and I promise we're gonna get to your origin story, okay? Like I think that's important as well.
this is your show. We can do whatever you
Uh,
like.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay, monetization, very important for a
Absolutely.
startup. You guys
Yeah,
just raised 7 million, I read, which is, I mean, congrats, by the way. I think you
thank you.
can do a lot with that, although these days maybe not so much as in the past. How do you plan to monetize? Like, is it sponsors ultimately going to pay for it, like most things in this industry? It doesn't seem like you have a plan to get revenue from the sites necessarily. You just want the sites to buy in, which is, I think, the right way to go. What are you guys having discuss? Whatever you can discuss that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think about it from two directions, right? The first direction is, I think, naturally, we're already working with some sponsors on some larger phase 3 programs. We're able to provide, insights across the entirety of their study. We're able to support them from a recruitment standpoint, all this kind of stuff. We think of ourselves as an integrated recruitment platform where we have unique sources of patients, right, that are using our platform. We've got um, a really slick intake and pre-screening approach. And then we have a platform that allows sites and sponsors to kind of collaborate on the patient referrals that are coming in that makes that experience easier for everybody around. In fact, I think we're looking at some of the numbers and we probably save 20 or 30% of like the operational like overhead in sites and sponsors collaborating. Like that's like the early indicators that we're starting to see here. So these first sponsors and sites that we're working on from like a sponsor perspective um, are thrilled here. So that's like the sponsor perspective, and then from a site level, we'd love to find a way to support sites and sites that are innovative and forward thinking and want to try new things. As you know, all sites get a marginal budget to experiment with on recruitment,
Hmm.
and we'd love to find a way to support them um, through that as well. So it's really just about finding the right combination of things that allow us to have impact across the industry and align everybody's incentives in the right way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this could work. I finally I finally worked with my first central recruitment vendor, that central patient recruitment vendor. I gotta say it's been like 18 years since I've been doing this. Only one patient recruitment vendor, and it's the one I'm working with now, One N Health. They're the only ones that have sent leads that I've actually screened, and are two of them are looking to randomize soon. I'm like
Exciting.
super excited that I actually found one. And it turns out, at least as of now, they don't work for sites directly. So the only way you can you can deal with them as a site is if the study you're working on happens to use them as a vendor.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't do like the, one-on-one with the sites. So I think there is a place for that. And I'm hoping that we find something for sites, because it's some of these studies are tough, Brandon. Like, I mean, these trials are getting more complex, not easier.
Yeah. And we've been having conversations with some sites that are telling us, hey, it'd be great if you could, really like own your site profiles, right? Like
Hmm.
um, each site has a different set of things that they like to, communicate to patients about. Whether it's the study team that's on site, like who the PIs are that you'd be working with, who like the care team is, where they like what their credentials might look like. All this is stuff that I think is relevant for patients as they try to figure out, which sites I really want to work with. And we want to give you the surface area for you to do that, to meet patients where they are, where they're looking, but also put your best foot forward.
I like that, the surface area. That's cool. Um, there's a need for that. I know of a few bigger companies trying to do something similar. I think you guys are actually further ahead than most. I mean, I never thought someone would come in and
Sure.
and make like a better clinicaltrials.gov, and I've played around with this for a few days now. I haven't. I'm gonna sign up my site profile, but it seems like you at least got the user experience right. Um, just from brief playing around with it. but
Yeah.
you guys
Thank you. I appreciate
focus
that. Thank you.
like, do you like, was UX super important for you, or what were like the priorities for patient engagement, I guess, for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it kind of this might be a good place for us to start talking about the origin story in a
Yes,
minute here.
perfect.
But our backgrounds as a team, we think about it as we're pulling together um, three unique like skill sets and putting them into like one place. Naturally, we're bringing kind of a biopharma skill set. You mentioned one of our uh, incredible advisors and investors, Jeff Kindler, former CEO of Pfizer, right?
Jeff
As
Kindler,
well
man.
as well as a couple others who help us, really understand the space and make sure that we're aligning, all of the actors appropriately and um, all the participants delivering what they need. We're also bringing in folks from, a more traditional healthcare setting. Um, and then lastly, and this is kind of where the rubber hits the road here, and I think what makes us pretty different as a team is we're bringing a pretty deep consumer internet background as well. So both my co-founder and I come from this consumer marketplace space. A lot of our founding team comes from a consumer internet background. And for us, it's all about building um, the best user experience possible, from design to the engineering to the pathways that people use in order to accomplish a job or accomplish a goal on the website. We need to make it as seamless as possible for patients and sites to do the things that they're trying to do. And we believe that if we do that, then patients will continue to choose to use Power to look for clinical trials, and that sites will continue to choose to use Power to meet those patients.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty clear. Like when you first open it, I remember learning about you first on Twitter. I think it was from like some biotech stream or something, and they recommended you. Like a few people kept recommending you. The DeSci space. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
decentralized science. Are you a part of that? I joined here and there, but in some of their tweet chats. But you guys kept coming up. I was like, what is this? What is this thing? So that's when I first learned about it, probably 6 months ago or so.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I've kind of engaged with those folks over on Twitter as well. It's a funny space, Twitter.
do you think there's something there with the DeSci, like the decentralized science? I mean, it's so costly to sponsor a trial, but do you think it's actually possible, like, to follow in the footsteps of cryptocurrency and have a similar business model when it comes to sponsoring a study, like kind of crowdsourcing a trial?
I don't think that I know enough about it
Me
to
either.
really have a good opinion. Like I haven't spent enough time, but there's certainly something that's compelling about the vision of, um, like wow, all of these basic scientists, the folks who do kind of the primary research, don't um, really get to participate in like the financial success of their work. And I think
Mhm.
there's something compelling there, just behind that mission on its own. But beyond that, very high level, I haven't engaged deeply enough to really have an opinion, I think.
Me either. It's interesting as hell, definitely worth keeping an eye on, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your take because I somehow I got connected to you because of that movement. I'm almost positive about that. So your guys' different backgrounds,
Sure.
um, whose idea? Like what happened to even want to do this? Like if you come from
Yeah.
consumer internet, I mean, this seems
How do we
kind of
get dragged
boring,
into
huh?
this? How do we get dragged into clinical trials?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the the story is that my co-founder and I met at a prior company. We're doing a home services marketplace. I should say my co-founder and two of our founding engineers actually. We all met building a consumer home services marketplace. I think general contracting, plumbing, that kind of thing. That business got acquired by Thumbtack at the end of 2020, and it was around that time that both my co-founder and I had our own personal run-ins with the clinical trial system. So his story is his own to tell, but I'll tell you mine. So around that time, I had a close friend of mine diagnosed with a brain tumor. Fairly young age. We were certainly under 30 at that point. And luckily, she's doing okay, largely because she kind of took her situation into her own hands and went to clinicaltrials.gov, found all the different options, and just started cold calling PIs. Um,
Wow.
right? Like that's like what can you do when you like when you're faced with the information there. You can cold call PIs, or you can email like generic inbox at bigpharma.com and like
Right.
and just hope that
Good
somebody gets
luck with
back to
that.
you.
Yeah.
So she started cold calling. She got herself in front of a study and got herself enrolled. And long story short, she's doing incredibly well. That study actually had a positive readout just a month or two ago. We can kind of see it coming just based on what was happening with her. But that was all really exciting. And the realization, at least on my part, was two things. The first is that she can't be the only patient that's out there trying to learn about what's exciting in research, trying to figure out if there's a better option than the standard treatments that are being presented. Um, so we wanted to empower those patients. And the second thing that we realized is, wow, this actually feels a lot like a consumer marketplace problem that we've
Mm.
tackled before, just in different settings. The way that we think about it is, marketplaces, at least the best ones, help us navigate traditionally opaque spaces in the real world. And that's exactly what research is, right? So we thought, hey, I think there's a lot we can learn from some of these other marketplaces like Airbnb and Zillow and Thumbtack, and we could bring it over here and hopefully do a whole lot more good for patients that are in need.
Mm. I mean, powerful story, definitely illustrates how important this stuff actually is. Sometimes we lose sight of that, us working in this space. We're just thinking about, hey, let's get a new study, let's find patients for our trials, but there's human beings on the other end of this looking for, in this case, I mean, at the most extreme, life or death situation, at the lesser extremes, just improve quality of life or curiosity, for
Yeah,
curiosity's sake.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Super powerful story. So from like, okay, you get the idea, and then, but how do you do it? Because you don't really know anything about this space. You mentioned my boy Jeff Kindler. I mean, he probably doesn't remember me, but I wrote him when I started in research. I was in the MBA program also. So I had to do a case study on any company I wanted. I picked Pfizer because I was in clinical trials. So I thought, oh, why not just choose the biggest pharma in the space? And it was a long shot. So I thought I would write him a letter. I actually wrote him one, like on paper.
Physical letter.
Yes, this is like '06. Email was a thing, but I was like, nah, I don't know. I'm just gonna write him a letter. He wrote me back. And then we started emailing back and forth, and it was kind of cool. We had like a 2 year period. I was just like asking him questions about Pfizer. How did you get like you go from idea to like getting him on your board or investing? Like how do you draw that line? Like,
Yeah, it's not a straight line. Like any startup story, it's not a straight line.
was he the
But
first or like the first big name, or were there others like before him?
yeah, so the story is that we knew nothing about the space. In fact, our first kind of version of what we wanted to do here was completely wrong, completely wrong. We wanted to build like an Uber like experience for clinical trials where we thought that patients might be interested in joining a database and being called like um, to come participate in a trial like on demand almost. Um, and that was just, as you would know, like absolutely incorrect. Most patients, they might raise their hand, but then within a week, they've lost interest in your research. They're not waiting by their phones like for you to
Right.
call them for research. So we were just absolutely off. So we spent some time on that and made a bunch of mistakes. Then we realized, oh, actually, um, the experience we need to build for is when patients have the interest in going to go look for a trial, it's too hard today for them to figure out which trial and figure out how to contact the nearest site to them. So can we build an Airbnb like experience that makes it easy to discover, browse, and connect with those trials and with those sites? So that was kind of like the really compressed journey we were on. Once we did that, the early kind of like patient experience was phenomenal. So we had a kind of janky version of what we have today, but patients were still using it. Patients were still finding it, and like we had tens, hundreds of patients like hitting the button to try to connect with trial sites, but we didn't have the trial sites in our network yet. But people were saying we want to participate here, and we realized, hey, we're really onto something. Let's go raise a little bit of money to go fund this and build it out so we can bring the network together. And it was in that journey that we ended up meeting Jeff via Artist Ventures. Artist coined the term tech bio. They're a venture fund that funds a lot of biotech
Mm,
and biotech innovation, but also technology companies that support life science and biology. So we kind of fit neatly in the portfolio there. I think Jeff at the time was an operating partner with them as well, so helping them on a select handful of their portfolio. Um, Jeff ended
gotcha.
up joining us for our pitch meeting, and he said, "Wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. I like the vision, and I like what you guys are up to. I'd be happy to be a more active participant in helping you build this." So that's how
Interesting.
we got engaged with Jeff. We were just honestly luck, string
So
of
it
luck.
had so it started with VC, you had a round or I guess an
That's right.
angel round or
We were pulling together a first round, and
I
he
see.
happened to join one of our pitch meetings, and he said, "Well, this is actually pretty cool. I like what you guys are doing."
I gotcha. So there are a lot of benefits to being VC backed besides the obvious financial stimulus you get connected to people like Jeff and others. I mean, your website's pretty impressive. Like you show who's on your board, who's the key investors. It's a lot of big names in pharma, a lot of the big pharma respected names. So I was just curious about that as a scrappy entrepreneur running community sites, like how you get a hold of these people. The way I did was write a letter,
Right?
but the way you did was way
Underrated.
more sophisticated.
Underrated. I think actually writing a letter today would help you stand out more than trying to go raise money from somebody.
I agree. I think like
Yeah.
'06, it was still probably more people doing it. In 2023, probably no one's writing a letter. There's people that don't even know how to send a letter.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I believe very strongly in the power of, just like sending a thoughtful handwritten card. I think
Hmm.
like during Christmas we sent some cards to some of our earliest supporters. Um, and uh, everybody loved it. Like you don't get real mail anymore. You get spam and
Junk mail.
and marketing, but like you don't get like a handwritten thoughtful card from somebody that you're working with anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so what's next for you guys as you grow? I mean, you're young. This is a 2021 startup.
Yeah,
Are you pleased with the progress so far, or do you think you can be doing more?
I think that in a startup environment, you have to always be um, thankful for where you are, but hungry for what's next. You know, as I think about the progress that we've made in our journey so far, what is it? Just just over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. I'm thrilled with where we are as a team, right? Like we had 300,000 patients use us last year to look for trials. We have 400 sites have signed up to connect with patients. We're working with some sponsors already to support the entirety of a phase 3 trial. Um, that's all really exciting, but it also is not enough, right? If we want this to really have the impact that we believe it can have, then we need more sites using the platform to connect with patients. Why? Because not only is that good for the sites, but that's good for the patients.
Hmm.
The more
Hmm.
sites that are using the platform, the more likely patients are to get connected to an appropriate site. We need more sponsors using the platform. Why? Because the more sponsors are using the platform, the more sites are empowered to use the platform. The more patients can learn about their research and the merits of the trial, right? Because it's only the sponsor that can go on and say, "Hey, like this is our trial. This is why it's potentially exciting. Here's kind of the IRB approved like explainer videos and infographics and all the stuff that we've invested a ton of time in that
Wow.
you should be using as a patient to understand what this research is about." Um,
Those videos are helpful that the sponsors create. I did an informed consent yesterday on a patient on a screening
mhm.
visit, and the sponsor for this study, they don't usually do it, but this sponsor made this little 4-minute video about like a deep dive into the science. But it
Yeah,
was very well produced, and I use that now as part of my consenting process for the study.
I think that's brilliant, right? Like we need to. We keep saying this, right? Like we need to meet patients where they are, and oftentimes what that means is they they see this as something that's high risk and they don't understand. But if we can find ways to explain it to patients, the research, the science, the reason, like the hypothesis, the reason why we
Right.
think it's promising, um, I think it'll go a huge way in building trust with that patient and getting them excited to participate.
Yeah, I think when the sponsors do stuff like this, like they usually focus, I mean, I understand why. They focus on the interesting science behind the IP, sort of the why, like the rationale, the very high level, and they
Mm,
show how complex it is. But they made this particular video made it very well produced in the sense it was almost like shedding light on something very complex. It got down to the various signaling enzymes and
right.
but I use it to show the patients, and it's only 4 minutes. One thing they don't do, I mean, kudos to the sponsor for even doing that. Many don't, most don't. One thing they don't do, I think they can do the same thing for the drawbacks of the study, like the potential negative aspects of it. There's always
Right.
safety concerns. And so that's one thing that was not in this video that when the video is over, I say, okay, before we get into this 40-page informed consent, let me
Sure.
just break down like some of the possible negative
Sure. Yeah.
consequences. I wish they would do that. I understand why they don't, but somebody's got to do it, and it
Yeah.
usually boils down being a coordinator like myself or a PI that are just MacGyvering this stuff.
Right.
Like oftentimes with AI helping us, like, well, why? Sometimes the sponsor doesn't even tell you why. They're just like, hey, we think. So we go down these rabbit holes. I
Yeah.
think that could be something useful as well, even though it sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah. And then I think that like on top of that, um, we need to move away from 4 minute. I know 4 minutes isn't that long, but we need to move away from 4 minute videos towards like 45-second videos.
Yeah.
Like in today's day and age, like a 45-second, 30-second YouTube short. Um,
Mhm.
I'm hesitant to say TikTok, maybe it gets banned, but like
Yeah.
like a 45-second, 30-second explainer, and then maybe three or four of them in a row. Um, I think that'll be way more engaging for patients. But hey,
I
um,
agree. I
baby
agree.
steps, right? And then like if you're doing that like that kind of like content, then you can add on the risk section, right? And like you can do it as
Right.
like a separate section as just like an add-on.
Yes. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get there.
Eventually.
That's why I mean Power. So with power.com, why hasn't this been done before? Or has it? I mean, I'm sure you studied this space, but why like it seems like an easy idea. Clinicaltrials.gov sucks. Let's just make a better version. I mean, have people tried and failed, and what's different with you guys?
I think a lot of people have tried. I think it's not a difficult insight to look at clinicaltrials.gov and think, oh, we can do better than this, right? Like that's not hard
Right.
to identify. I think what's hard is like two parts. The first one is really building a patient-centric experience and understanding what patients want to do in their journey as they're learning about research. So if you look at our website, like it's easy, I think, at the surface level to be like, oh, this is like the same information, but in a different format. That's not exactly true. It's slightly different, and it's been augmented in a way that helps patients like navigate a little bit better. And I'll give you an example. Classic example is that um, on clinicaltrials.gov, it is impossible to search by the nearest site to you. It's like
I see.
it's impossible to do the location search. In order to do the location search, you have to do a lot of really like ugly data cleanup and data engineering on site locations, and that's like on a per site basis. And then you have to take that and create a completely different database of like potential site locations, and use that to surface locations, but also use that to influence the way that the search experience is built. So there's all this kind of like really ugly backend, or there's a really ugly backend problem that I put under the category of unclean data um,
Okay.
from clinicaltrials.gov that you need to go in and clean up and like spend the time like managing if you want to build an experience like this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on clinicaltrials.gov right now. They redesigned it. And the default is still the old design, but if you click this link on the top of it, it will give you the newer design. And I see what you're talking about. I mean, like the closest you could get is within 25 miles of an address. Um, or you can just pick city, and in a smaller city like Yuma, it's not that hard. Yuma, Arizona. You can find like probably the couple of studies I have. Um, let's do a live and see. Oh, there's the hospital doing this. This is my study right here.
Mhm.
Um, I've probably said too much, but I mean, like I've done this already on your site, and it is cleaner. It's it shows me the difference is it shows me like it somehow knew where I was, and it shows me like within 10 miles, like less than 10 miles from me. So it seems more specific, which probably is more useful in like a larger city like Los Angeles, where, 10 miles is like could be an hour or more depending on the time, and it'd be better to find the one within 2 miles or within 1 mile as opposed to 10 miles. So was that kind of the idea that you're talking about, or is it just even more than that?
I think it's a lot of like TLC. Um, it's a lot of small things that add up to a larger experience. I think that um, if you look at I don't know, the experience on like Airbnb, right?
Mm,
It's not like one thing that makes the experience. It's a lot of really small details that somebody crafted with a lot of care, that allows it to be the experience it is. And I think it's similar with our platform, right? Like, location-based search is one thing. Then there's another one, which is, and people are always baffled by how we've done this, but if you look at our study summaries, like we have rewritten all
I
the
see.
study summaries from the medical jargon that is on clinicaltrials.gov to something that's plain English. And
Ah,
we do that across every study, right? Um,
like man, humans do it, or you have AIs now, or how does
we,
that
our team has found a way to do it.
wow.
Um, and like that level of care, I think helps a patient who's like learning about a trial go, oh, like I can kind of actually understand what's going on now, as opposed to, like the 5 paragraphs that you get on the front of clinicaltrials.gov,
Right.
which is like, oh, this is a double blind, like dose escalation, like
Yeah,
all these
yeah.
things that patients like, I have no idea what this means. So we found a way to kind of take that and make it into like, I don't know, 3 or 4 sentences that, you know,
Interesting.
um, most people can read and understand. And I can give you 100 examples like this, but it's a lot of small things that come together in a meaningful way.
Hmm. Well explained. That's something that definitely I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm going to sign up my site for it. You guys verify that we exist.
Yeah,
We already have couple of my studies on there. I already looked. So yeah, I'll be interested to see like how it works. I'm not expecting to get any referrals, but I'll definitely contact them and when they do, and if they do, and see, give my feedback. But
please.
as a brand new startup, almost 2 years now, it's cool to see somebody trying to improve the experience for patients, because that's something that the industry always pays lip service to, but I don't really see them doing at scale. It could be done at the community level, like smaller sites like us, but at scale, it usually doesn't work out for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, right? Because when you think of um, the way that the organizations are built and
Hmm.
the way that like organizations, like organizational structures, influence, what people can focus on. Um, at the sponsor level, everyone is um, organized around a single study or like a single like asset, right? And all like day in day out, what you're thinking about is like, how do I get this asset from like this milestone to like the next milestone? Um, it kind of takes a third party, I think, like a non-sponsor affiliated party, a non-site affiliated party, to really take the patient view across the system, across the board. Um, and
Hmm.
that's the role that we hope to play, right? In partnership with you and other sites and folks to make the site experience better, and in partnership with sponsors who can use our platform to deliver a more patient-centric experience for their trials too.
When I first started like learning about these kind of things, probably '08, '09, definitely 2010 when I started YouTube. Social media was like becoming mature, right? Like you had still the early crowd on Twitter, but like Facebook was starting to have more real people, not just students. And now, I mean, we're in a whole different world where social media is just ingrained in our lives. But like 2009, 2010, it was, and there were websites like Patients Like Me, which now got acquired by one of the big insurance companies, I think, and a few other like niche little social networks where
Mm,
patients would essentially do what Power is doing.
help each other.
help each other out.
Yeah.
Do you think there's room for like a social component of this amongst patients within Power, or are you leaving that for someone else, or do you think that just doesn't work?
I think it's a really good question. One of the behaviors that we're starting to see right now is that patients will discover our website and then share it with other patients in their social networks. So they'll go to their Facebook group and say, "Hey, have you checked this out? Like this is, I was just using this for like looking on my own, and it seems like they've got a bunch of like clinical trial information.
Hmm.
Y'all should use this to take a look."
That's how I
Um,
discover on Twitter, through that
right?
DSI. I think there were some patients in there chiming in also.
Yeah. So rather than trying to recreate a social network, I think that's really hard to do.
Mm,
People are already congregating on Facebook, on Reddit, and in their communities. Rather than like trying to recreate a social network, our point of view is that we want to make it very easy for those social networks to discover us and help each other using our platform. Um, so that's kind of the path we're going down here. Um, Rather than
hmm.
trying to create a social network, really just trying to empower the existing ones.
Yeah, it makes more sense. The other one I remember was clinicalconnection.com, which
Oh yeah,
used to be just a message board, and I actually back in 2010, I think I played around with it, but he never got that. The interest there was amongst the healthy volunteers looking to get paid, big
sure.
bucks. Like, what center is paying the most, and what do you got to do? Like, it wasn't like the real clinical trials we're dealing with here, where um, we're talking about like treatments, alternatives, life-saving situations, as in the case of your friend. Yeah, lots to talk about, Brandon. I mean, I appreciate you coming on, and Brandon's LinkedIn is underneath this video and in the podcast as well for those listening. Thank you for coming on. Anything else you want to add that you didn't get a chance to say?
Uh, no, I think we covered a lot of ground, Dan. Thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
guess
we
maybe
did.
like last thing, I'll plug a newsletter that we're launching.
Ah, okay.
So just launched a newsletter. The target is for clinical operations leaders who want to challenge the status quo. It's a little bit of a ClinOps newsletter. It's a little bit of a humor newsletter, and we're calling it Clin Oops.
Clint,
So if you
oops.
Clin Oops. So if that sounds like you,
That does
then
sound like me.
check us out. I'll send you the first issue. We just launched it yesterday.
I got memes
So
for you. If you want to publish memes, I've got endless supply of memes in here.
let's co-meme.
Let's do it.
Let's be co-meme lords. That'll be a fun place to be.
Clint, oops. And how do I
Clin
find
Oops.
this? How do people find this?
Clinoops.substack.com.
Dot Substack. Okay.
Yeah, but I'll send you the link and we can pop it into the show notes.
Okay. Done. And I'll be on there too. Thank you,
Boom.
Brandon. I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect. Everybody go follow Brandon. Do you prefer LinkedIn or Twitter for people?
Whatever you like.
Okay.
Twitter is
We'll
more
stick
of
to
the
LinkedIn for
LinkedIn is more of the like professional content, and Twitter is a little bit more of like the unfiltered like train of thought.
Twitter's the Wild West, man. But that's how I found you. It wasn't LinkedIn.
There's some
Um,
magic there. There's some
yeah,
magic there.
there's a lot there. Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Everybody go
Dan, thanks a
follow.
lot.
I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Maybe we'll do a follow up in a year and see what's new. And I'll definitely give my thoughts as I'm using it as a community
Please do.
site and see. I'm actually excited. There's something for sites potentially.
Please do. Excited to hear your feedback. I'm excited to continue building the platform.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you everyone
All
for
right, Dan.
watching, listening. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye bye.